Imagine you live in Haiti. Imagine you have children.
Now imagine that you love your children, but you cannot feed them.
Now you have two choices. Either you can go out and beg, or you can make ends meet.
Would you cut down a tree? We are one tree at a time, and we will be talking to you guys about deforestation in Haiti. Deforestation is a very real and very critical issue in Haiti. This is an illustration of the severity of deforestation in Haiti. As a matter of fact, we flew in from Haiti to the DR, and as we were flying over, we could see the discrepancy, the very stark difference between the vegetation in our country and the vegetation in the Dominican Republic. What is the basic issue?
I have a question for you guys. Who here knows what deforestation is? Raise your hand, please. Can you answer, please?
The destruction and removal of forests.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Who else knows? No. Alright, the definition is the permanent destruction of native forests and woodlands.
So why is deforestation in Haiti a critical issue? Haiti is quickly reaching a state, an irrecoverable state in terms of deforestation. Haiti's environment is in fact one of the most devastated in the world due to deforestation, which has caused much ecological vulnerability. In 1923, up to 60% of Haiti's land was forested. Today, in 2014, only 1.4% of Haiti's land remains forested. Every year, 20 million trees are chopped down to meet the demand for our prime source of fuel, which is charcoal. Trees are generally cut down and burned to produce charcoal. Only 30% of the land today is suitable for farming, and the poor who are struggling to survive, or struggling to grow crops and to be able to sell them in Haitian markets, have been forced to resort to cutting down trees and producing charcoal in order to survive and to support their families. This is a picture of a young Haitian boy who has cut down a tree. He will use this tree, burn it, to produce charcoal for his family to be able to make food. So the roots of deforestation. We felt it was important to give you guys some insight into the roots of deforestation because today it's mainly associated to the Haitian population, but it's important that you understand that the roots of it began much before we even had our full independence. So after we gained our independence from France in 1804, they didn't recognize our independence, but in 1825, a treaty was signed in which France officially recognized our independence, but they required that we make a payment. In addition to 150 million francs, they also asked that we pay them in trees. So millions of trees were chopped down and exported to France, which is where mass deforestation really started in our country. But say a century later, in 1954, logging operations began to increase in Haiti because we had an increasing need for demand, or for an increasing need for charcoal as a source of fuel so our people could survive. So the causes of deforestation, the prime one is charcoal production. The poor are desperate for income. Many of them, such as rice farmers, they find it difficult to grow their crops and then to sell it in our country's markets because other products, such as American rice, are sold for much cheaper prices and they can't compete. So because they need to support their families and because they cannot compete, they resort to cutting down trees in order to produce charcoal. The second cause for deforestation in Haiti is the fact that there are no environmental regulations, meaning that the government doesn't tackle the issue as much as they should, and they only pay lip service to it, meaning that they speak of taking action, but the action that they take isn't substantial enough. And also they don't provide the population with alternative sources of fuel, so they continue to cut down trees in order to produce charcoal. This is a picture of a Haitian man cutting trees in Ile-de-la-Gonave. The effects of deforestation. The prime effect of deforestation is erosion, soil erosion. So around 15,000 acres of fertile topsoil on mountains in Haiti are washed away during the rainy season every year. And it results in damages in our infrastructure, primarily our dams and our roads, as well as the fact that sediment from the soil enters the ocean, and it also harms marine life. One technique that farmers in Haiti use to make the soil fertile is slash and burn. It is not a sustainable way because it exhausts the soil, and when they cut down trees, it further exhausts the soil and lowers the productivity of the land. And because the roots of the trees aren't present to be able to hold the soil down, flooding occurs and it kills hundreds. The land is also barren, especially in the countryside. Many trees are cut down in the countryside and exported to Port-au-Prince, our capital, and our main city, where charcoal is produced. This is a charbonnier, that's a term in French for a carbon worker. This is just an old woman, she's packaging charcoal into bags to be exported to the city. So why other efforts have failed? So reforestation efforts have been mainly successful from organizations, foreign organizations, not the government in Haiti, because the government is rather apathetic towards it. So one of the main organizations is USAID. They started a project in the 1990s. It was called Projet Piedbois. It means project. It's like tree project. So they planted around 25 million trees in the country. That sounds really successful, yes. But the problem is that in Haiti, charcoal serves as, it provides 76% of Haiti's energy source, and around 720,000 metric tons of charcoal are used annually, meaning that the majority of the population, which is poor, relies on charcoal in order to be able to survive. So because it didn't provide the population with an alternative to charcoal, they had no choice but to continue to cut down the trees in order to produce charcoal. So for every new tree that was planted, 7 more were still cut down. So it wasn't as effective because no energy alternatives were provided. So we as a group, when we entered this conference, we decided to develop an essential question in order to put the entire issue of deforestation into perspective. And our question was, how has deforestation plagued Haiti's environment, and how can we promote sustainable, affordable, and effective solutions to remedy the destructive effects of this environmental issue?
And we have a mission, and it's to inform and instruct sustainable and environmentally conscious practices, also to combat deforestation, and to engage local residents in sustainable reforestation processes. And that we make the people aware, and they can do their part in helping the environment.
So, how will we take action? So the first branch of how we want to take action was to educate people on the importance of trees and leaves, so they would understand that when they cut down a tree, there is an actual consequence to it.
Okay. So we all know people say you have to plant trees and that it's important and it helps the environment, but do we really know what the benefit of trees are and what they can do for us? First, we're gonna have a little activity. I want the person with the number 3 to tell me things that they know about the benefits of leaves.
Leaves? Leaves?
What do you think is the benefit of having leaves?
They provide food for insects.
Okay, now number 2, what can you tell us about how it helps us with food and medicinal things?
With some plants and leaves that are created by the trees help also as medicine, also act as medicine. And as food source, because many trees, as well as produce fruit, can feed other animals, and we can get food from there.
So anybody with the number 4 want to tell me what they know about tree branches? Tree branches. The branches on the trees. When you think about it, what comes to your mind?
Someone can help her out.
So, anybody want to help her out?
You can pass your card to someone else and then they can help you.
They have fruits.
Yeah. They bear fruit, that's true.
Bonfires?
Very true, yeah. Okay. Now we're gonna tell you what we have. Well, we all know that trees are important and that they sustain life, and it's all about the ecosystem, and every part of a tree is essential for our life and for our ecosystems. Every single part is essential. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about various benefits. Who had leaves? Okay, so basically leaves have so many different benefits that they have to help our humanity. They absorb odors, they create oxygen, and without oxygen we can't really live. They create shade because when they're on the branches, it lowers our body temperature. And also, he's going to say about tree branches.
About tree branches, my partner just said it creates shade. So the longer the tree branches, the bigger the shade is. And also it's shelter for many species, animals like birds, bees, and all squirrels, all types of animals. And it also absorbs water. And tree branches, they also make sure that the leaves are exposed to the sun because it's the sun that provides energy. And also with bigger branches, you have less carbon dioxide and more oxygen. And also tree roots. Anybody know what tree roots are? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you. So tree roots are in the soil and they purify the soil. They clean it from all chemicals and they hold and regenerate the soil. So when there's like heavy rain, it prevents erosion and soil runoff. So when there's heavy rain, the soil doesn't just run off, it just because the roots are holding the soil, and the roots are the stability of the soil and the tree.
Okay, so food. When I say food, what I mean is that a tree bears fruit. It bears shelter. It bears, when you have a specific kind of tree, you can create medicinal remedies that can be more natural and more healthy for you to use with your body, except like other than the medicine that you find at the pharmacy that can be harmful to your body and that can be artificial that you don't want to put in your body. And also when you grow your own crops in your country and you have your trees, it creates an economy. And that way you can sell things and you can be sufficient to yourself and you can have ecosystems because the animals are going to depend on the plants, they're going to depend on the food that they eat, and then you'll have flourishing environment. So this is why we say that a tree would fix so many different problems that we have because it has like millions of different things that it's good for. All right, so we've just talked about what leaves are good for when they're still on the tree, but who knows what they're good for when they're on the ground? You?
Kindling for fire.
That's true.
They make the soil for
Exactly. So what we think that if you want to help your environment to have better soil, like we saw this morning in the expert, he was telling us how we can make our soil better. You take your leaves on the floor and you create compost with it. And once it's in the ground, it makes you have such a rich soil that you can grow anything, any sort of plant. And it's just going to be so healthy for you. And it's much better to have these leaves produce something for you and put back into the earth so they can be beneficial, other than just to burn them like we do in our country and to create waste that goes up into the air and has bad effects on the ozone and all sorts of negative things. So you can do a lot with your leaves instead of just throwing them away.
Sustainable solutions. Our sustainable solutions are to, we're going to provide people with alternatives to charcoal. We plan on giving them propane stoves and or solar cookers. Solar cookers are like stoves that you could use with like reflectors. You can usually use a box or a metal, something metallic, and it uses the sunlight to cook, to heat whatever you have. And the propane stoves, they use propane. We will promote reforestation through activities like different things like tree fairs, things like that. Like in workshops, we're going to have workshops geared towards teaching people how to take care of trees and plants and things like that. It will provide them with like a means to improve their environment. We're going to give the people opportunities to benefit themselves and their environment. Like My Neighborhood is Green program. That's a program that we plan on having to make people in the urban areas plant trees and shrubs in the neighborhood, because in a lot of our cities, especially Port-au-Prince, most of the city is paved in concrete. It's rare to see a tree like around every corner, and it's really gray and not pretty. And the garden party, it's the same thing as My Neighborhood is Green program, but for rural areas, because we have a lot of cities that are not exactly like high tech like the capital. We plan on having plant and tree fairs for open to the public, so that people can learn how to use different trees and plants for medicinal uses, and how to learn to take care of them, how you learn to use like the roots and the flowers for medication, instead of using the pills that are constantly given to you that always have like side effects and everything. A healthy alternative to the medication that we're prescribed today.
So we were just going to leave you guys off with our public service announcement, which we used to target deforestation again.
Today, 98% of Haiti's land is deforested. Every year, 20 million trees are felled to meet the high demand for the country's primary fuel source, charcoal. The poor have little choice but to produce and burn charcoal, as it is the basis of their livelihoods. With no environmental regulations and no provisions of alternative fuel sources, deforestation in Haiti has become a real thing, unchecked. Today, only 1.4% of Haiti's land remains forested. One tree at a time is on a mission to reforest the pearl of the Antilles. We want to instill in Haitians a sense of awareness of the consequences of deforestation, to teach them what it means to take care of land, provide them with alternative fuel sources, and to inspire them to plant today the seeds for Haiti's greener tomorrow by planting one tree at a time.
So this pretty much wraps up our presentation, and the public service announcement was just aimed at targeting the main points of what we want to do. One tree at a time. This is our first time participating in GIN, so we haven't really had a chance to actually take action on our solutions and what we want to do, but we really hope to build on those so that next year when we come, we'll actually have more aspects of our project to be able to share. So I guess I'll finalize the presentation with asking if you guys have any questions for us that we could answer.
Why did you choose deforestation as your issue?
We felt it was one of the critical issues in our country, and it's very much linked to poverty. And also, we didn't just want to bring in an issue that makes people feel pity for Haiti. So I don't want to come here and show you guys pictures of poor people in my country and talk to you about, the cliched problems that you hear all the time, the insecurity or the fact that there are people starving, and there is all of that. But we wanted to target an issue that's maybe at the root, one of the roots of poverty in our country. And if we could tackle a problem as big as deforestation in our country, it could actually have a greater impact, at least in one branch of poverty in our country. Yeah.
And how much time do you think you will take to start the project?
To start the project, probably like right when we get back to school. For instance, I'm a senior, so these guys are gonna have to keep on taking it on after I leave. So I don't know, it'll just be like a step-by-step process to go out there. We especially wanted to work with other organizations because there are other Haitian organizations that are starting efforts in our country trying to promote deforestation, and our president has recently tried to start new plans. So even though it's a step-by-step process, we want to be able to coordinate with these different groups of people to be more effective. But I don't know, deforestation is, reforesting a country is something that probably takes decades, but we want to at least play a role in moving our country towards that direction. Maybe later, sending letters to our ministry or our prime minister or whatever. Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that you could use the techniques that were presented by the first keynote speaker today?
Yeah, we didn't even know if those techniques existed. I guess with more research and more things, like when we look deeper into things, we'll find a million of solutions that are possible that our government wouldn't look into and that we can give another outlook on, and it'll be fresh and young. So yeah.
Do you guys right now have, do you know now, the first steps that you want to take going back? Because I know you gave us a lot of ideas of things that you want to start doing, but do you know where you're going to start?
Yeah, actually, what we want to do is that we want to get our school to try to connect with other schools in different districts and teach the children there, because we're mainly going to be aiming towards children and young adults who are the future of our country. Because for the adults, if we aim towards the adults, it's not going to make much of a difference. So we're going to connect with the different schools to go around, and we're going to have like different field trips and things like that. We've already, there are a few neighborhoods that have actually already started around my neighborhood. They renewed everything.
Yeah, also we wanted to have our school be more green, because a lot of things that we do at our school are because it's so not right, because we use a lot of paper and also plastic bottles, dozens of plastic bottles per day. So we know that this isn't right, because we know, and we want our school to be more conscious of the decisions that they make. So we want to influence them to be more that way.
Yeah, and we're also hoping to have GIN turn into either a separate class or maybe a club in our school, because we're the ones who've been exposed to GIN, and if we could get more students in our school to get on board on GIN and to understand what it's about, and to understand how maybe we can make an impact in our country through a program like GIN, that would be really great. And then, as Michael said, we could contact other schools and maybe have them come with us or develop their own clubs in their own schools, and that would just get the ball rolling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas on how we're going to spread the word of the other fuel sources?
Sorry?
Of alternative fuel sources.
How are we going to spread the word?
Yeah, of alternative fuel sources.
Well, spreading the word for alternative fuel sources, that'll be part of our workshop and our tree fairs, because it's going to be open to the public for everyone to come take part. A lot of people are going to take part of it, and as we do that, they're going to realize that it's most likely going to be cheaper for them to use the alternatives that we have planned than to keep burning charcoal. Is going to have less of an impact on them.
And actually, before we actually came to the conference, our student council was working to raise money, so they had us bring in money so that we could actually start buying those little propane stoves for the janitors who work in our school, because they couldn't rely on charcoal to be able to support their families as well. But just in terms of making food, not going out to cut trees or anything like that, but just to instill the idea or just to start planting that seed. We started with the janitors in our school, and it's something that we could spread through something like pet fairs and things like that.
What's an alternative resource instead of charcoal?
The alternative sources were the stoves, the different types of stoves, the propane stove and the solar stove. There are other resources, but they're more expensive than charcoal is, and most of the country can't afford that. But those are the ones that we want to try for now.
Any more questions? So I just want to say this is Mathilde, Talia, Adrien, I'm Chris, this is Michael from Haiti, and we are
One GI at a time.
Thank you.
Thank you.